we will allow God's Spirit to direct us. There were people among the Israelites who weren't expecting God to do anything new among them. And after expressing that God is doing a new thing, the question is asked there in Isaiah, do you perceive it? Do you get it, folks? Faith has given the prophet Isaiah this vision of what God's people can do and will do. And that's what most scholars today identify as the new Exodus. We know about the old Exodus, but God will return God's people from their exile in Babylon. And how will God do that? Hear the words again. I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. This new Exodus promises to be an even greater and more wonderful event than the first one. God's people have been called to turn away from the past. To turn from the past so that they can see with eyes of faith and look toward the future and know that God will lead them and guide them, and they wait and listen to see what God is going to do. Move forward to today, and when we take that step toward the future, we put ourselves in such a position to get greater blessings from God than we've ever received in the past. Think about that. We're about to celebrate our 95th, 94th anniversary. None of us here have been here that long, but 95th. How many blessings Mark's saying 96. Can a church receive in 96 years? A ton. How many more do you suppose God has out there for us if we believe it? If we look for it? If we honor what's in the past? But if we seek what's in the future? And it's all really an issue of trust. Do we trust God and allow Him to direct our lives, or do we seek to maintain control of everything ourselves? What about in our churches? Do we want what we want because we want it? Or do we allow God to determine the direction that our churches will go? Sadly, in many of our churches, we spend an inordinate amount of time discussing programs and discussing activities and other objectives we want to see the church pursue. We present our ideas, and then we debate and discuss all the possibilities and the ramifications, both good and bad. And after all that's over, we close our meetings with 30 seconds of prayer. 2 hours of talk, 30 seconds of prayer. The truth, I feel, is that maybe we should focus more of our time and more of our energy together on our knees in corporate prayer. I ask you, how actively, how frequently do we seek God's will together as we look down the road where we will be and how we will get there and where it is God wants us to go? Do we ask God for new directions for our church, and directions that will change us and stimulate us? Do we ask God to rely more on Him? Do we ask God to show us new people coming through those doors that need to experience God's grace and the healing power that God offers to all of us? All of us carry pain. All of us have baggage. And whatever pain we carry, whatever disappointment we've experienced, God can and will do a new thing in our lives. Us, here, those of us sitting in this room. He will do a new thing in our lives, and God alone, only God, can provide the healing and the renewal that will lift and sustain our spirits. In today's scripture, the journey of the people of Israel through the desert was marked by many signs and many wonders. But the most compelling image in this biblical account is the gift, and we know this from the first Exodus, the gift of water. In the deliverance of God's people from Egypt, God provided for the people in dramatic fashion. What did He provide? He provided food, manna, and He provided water so that they could have something to drink. Well, in 2019, we're in a new Exodus. It's a different Exodus. And the harsh realities, however, of desert life still impact every one of us. Desert life, the storms that we go through, are still a threat for God's people. But through all of time, God has never changed. God has not changed. Sources of water have been provided, even there in the desert, for those who did what? Who responded to God's call to follow Him. The food was there for God's people. Today, in the New Testament church, we live with the promise of the spilled blood and the broken bread. We have new life through the bread of life. So the end result of all of this is that God's people are sustained, and the created order celebrates. The world celebrates by praising God in our lives and in our churches. Religious activities and business around a board table or a committee table will not, hear that, will not satisfy the thirst that we have of our souls. It's only when God is truly our life source will our thirst be quenched. So, I ask you to remember, as you walk from here this morning, God, from the very beginning, has not changed. We must change. We must be part of the new Exodus. We must hear that God promises us that He will do new things. And if we'll hear it, and if we'll anticipate it, and if we will go actively looking for it, friends, we will receive whatever it is new and wonderful and perfect that God has for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.